What's going on, gamers? It's your boy H-Dog back here again with another video. And the Entertainment Software Association president Michael Gallagher defended loot boxes during an address at the recent Nordic Games conference, telling the audience that regulating them as a form of gambling, quote, challenges our industry's freedom to innovate and impairs our ability to continuously test new business models, which drive creativity and engagement with our audience. And if you want to read the full article, which comes out of PCGamer.com, I will put the link to it in the description box. He also reiterated that loot boxes can be defined as gambling because they always deliver something for the player's money, and said that monetization mechanisms similar to loot boxes have existed for a long time. Quote, when you look at the definitions of gambling throughout the world and how this is done and how it's regulated in places like Las Vegas and the US, it's quite different to the mechanism with loot boxes and games. That conclusion has been reached. In other words, that is game mechanic that this game mechanic is not gambling by the Entertainment Software Ratings Board in the US, by New Zealand's Gambling Authority, and by the UK's Gambling Authority. Despite the Netherlands and Belgium challenging that position, Gallagher calls upon self-regulation rather than government intervention, pointing towards the ESRB's implementation of an in-game purchases label. Quote, we can't go to the lowest common denominator of government around the world and make that the standard the rest of the world has to live by, and limit the trajectory of the industry, Gallagher told the site. That's not the best approach. Instead, we believe it's best to be clear about the facts and make sure those carry the day around the world, so we drive an outcome that best extends the game industry's frontiers and looks after the interest of gamers. Boy, there's a lot to pick apart right there. First off, he says that labeling that by governments labeling loot boxes as gambling, to him it challenges the industry's freedom to innovate, impairs the ability to test new business models, and which drive creativity and engagement. Which, when it comes to creativity, there's nothing creative about putting loot boxes in a game. There's nothing innovative about putting a loot box in a game. And when it comes to business models and engagement, that pretty much means we want your money. And it's funny because if loot boxes wasn't selling like they are now, and keep in mind, all it could take is one person to buy $1 million worth of loot boxes, and I know that sounds crazy, but it could only take that one person to satisfy the needs of the ESA, of the ESRB. All it could take. And there's nothing innovative about a loot box. If you want to give players content, if you want to be innovative with a loot box, show people the odds. Let people see the odds and the chances of what they can get in a loot box. That way it can be more similar towards a microtransaction, because at least with a microtransaction you know what you're paying. And if you want to be innovative, if you want to innovate games with loot boxes, do them to where nobody could buy them with real world money. Do them in a creative way. If you want to innovate with loot boxes, do it in a creative way that isn't strong arm, that isn't, what's the word for it, anti-consumer. If you want to be creative with the loot box, do something like Horizon Zero Dawn did. Now, yes, now that game technically had loot boxes, but if you find all the collectibles in that game, you get rewarded with a reward box for finding all those collectibles throughout the world. And that, to me, was kind of a rewarding way of a loot box instead of one that just is anti-consumer. You know what I mean? Even though technically you could say it's not really a loot box, but hey, it was a creative way to do it. Like another good example would be with Need for Speed Payback. That game dropped the ball when it came to how it handled loot boxes. Like, they could have made those loot boxes to where it wasn't a progression system. They could have made it to where it wasn't basically the progression system, but they did. And it's the fact that it's so wrapped around progression, it's silly. But people like the ESA and ESRB, they're going to defend this to the death because people like EA, Activision, paid them to do so. And Ubisoft, I don't want to throw them in there because anytime they've recently tried to put loot boxes in their games, there's been somewhat of a bit of an outrage from it, and they would be immediately pulled permanently. And if you want to test, if Michael Gallagher, if you want people to test new business models, wouldn't it be better if these game companies that you're speaking for made full priced $60 games? You get what you paid for, that has a bevy amount of content that isn't cut up and stretched out over time. Like, instead of putting everything in a live service loot box ridden business model, why not just put all the stuff that you would put in a live service in the base game day one, or not have loot boxes at all? I mean, I remember back in the day, loot boxes wasn't even really a thing last gen, and microtransactions was, you barely heard about it, once or twice. The biggest one being Dead Space 3 that I knew of. But to me, it's no surprise, and they're gonna defend this to the death. And he talked about self-regulation, but if you want to self-regulate, I don't think a damn warning label is gonna help anything, because you're gonna have the parents who don't really play video games, and they just get it just to make little Jimmy be quiet and put him to sleep and make him sleep good at night. They don't get it to read a warning label. That's about like somebody going to the store buying cigarettes. Do you think they read the warning label before smoking? No, they don't. If you really don't want the government to intervene, just self-regulate. Hell, it's in the ESRB's ratings on its website that games with gambling mechanics should get an adults only rating. That's how you solve this whole problem. And I understand it could do more harm. It could cost them money, but in my opinion, you gotta break some eggs. You gotta make sacrifices for the greater good at some point. But with that being said, guys, what do you guys think about Michael Gallagher's comments? Do you like them? Do you disagree with them? Let's talk about it down in the comments. If you enjoyed my video, smash the like button as hard as you can. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and tap the notification bell. That way you stay up to date on all my content and you'll never miss a video. And until next time, I'm out. Peace.